The information provided on lifeinterruptedradio.com is for educational purposes only.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and it's another episode. Wow, I am so thrilled and excited. We hit past the 200 mark and are carrying on, even upwards and onwards, as I like to say. And, it's so funny when I said that. I've been using the word onward on Instagram a lot lately. It's all about keeping moving forward, finding new ways to just refresh and renew, revitalize ourselves. And I got to thinking, I was trying to think how long ago we had this guest on. It was a while ago. And I said, I had so many questions that I needed to ask her. So I invited her back on the show because she's an awesome guest. And I figured if I had these questions, you guys probably had some of them too. So her name is Sharon Carne, and she is an author and an international speaker. She is the trainer and director of training and development, a publisher, a musician, and a recording artist. And she's the founder of Sound Wellness and the Sound Wellness Institute, and also the co-founder of Emergent Workforce Program, the most recent expansion of her offerings over at Sound Wellness Institute. And I am just shocked and amazed that she found time for us because she is always so busy teaching and practicing how sound and music support our health. And her Emergent Workforce Program is dedicated to restoring well-being, community purpose, creative and collaboration and kindness in the workplace. Who doesn't need that? So welcome, Sharon. It's so weird saying, hi, Sharon. Hi, Sharon.
I know. Thank you so much, Sharon. I am so delighted to be back here. I love our conversations.
I do too, and I've been meaning to have you back, and it seems like the things are lining up to get you back because in the past 2 or 3 months, I'll say, I've had so many interesting questions come up around sound and vibration and energy of the sound, and I just had so many questions. I thought, let's get Sharon back on. So first off, let's explain exactly what is sound wellness? I mean, how does sound help us heal?
Sound is defined as vibrational energy, and we know that everything is in vibration, especially at the quantum level, the atomic level. Everything's moving and everything's vibrating. And sound is defined as vibrational energy. So it's an energy that in order for it to move, it has to push against atoms and molecules. And as it pushes against atoms and molecules, it sets everything into vibration, which is why it's called vibrational energy. And the cool thing about sound is that it's one of the few energies that can actually change how matter vibrates, how matter itself vibrates.
Oh, this is so fascinating. Just the other week, couple weeks ago, we had Dr. Bradley Nelson from the Emotion Code on, and he was talking about how our bodies are just big, my words, not his, big lumps of energy, and how when we move some of these old trapped emotions out, it's a vibrational thing. It's an energy thing that happens. Wow, this is fascinating. That's going to lead me to my next question, which might be a little rabbit hole, but I know you're always game for that. So,
oh, yeah.
Recently, I was introduced, and a friend took me to see an energy healer. I didn't really know what to expect other than my friend kept saying, oh, you'll love it. You'll love it. I'm like, okay. And I adore my friend. So off we go. And one of the things this person used on places in my back, especially my low back, were tuning forks. And I'm sort of listening, or, I hear her sort of being the tuning fork, and then I feel the vibration on my back. And my first thought was, But I was absolutely shocked and amazed at how fast things changed in that place that she was working on. Can you give me a little more reason of why?
Well, yeah, that's a fabulous question. And I've worked with tuning forks and bowls and the voice for many, many years. And tuning forks are like lasers of sending a vibration to a specific area. And sound is food for your nervous system. I wanted to share a story, Sharon, about a story that John Ballou shares, actually, who has developed protocols and many tuning forks and ways of using tuning forks himself. Dr. John Ballou is a music therapist and a naturopathic doctor. And in his work as a music therapist, he had the opportunity many years ago to spend 500 hours, not all at once, in an anechoic chamber. And an anechoic chamber is a small room that has absolutely no outside influence. So it's completely silent, it's completely dark, and it's void of any noise, any sound, any light, anything from the outside. No fans, no nothing.
I don't think I'd like that.
Not many people do. He spent 500 hours in here, and as a trained musician also practiced listening to all of the sounds that became more evident that from the body that we don't usually hear, because there's so much sound and all kinds of stimulus around us. So what he discovered is that the nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, and all of the activity of the neurons has several different sounds. And these sounds are in what's called intervals, or spaces between notes. Let's say one nerve is at this note, another nerve might be at this one, and another one might be at this one. So all of these nerves are sounding at different ranges of sound. So one day he went in there and he had a pair of tuning forks actually with him, because he wanted to play with the tuning fork sound. And something happened on his way into the chamber, and he was in a bit of a bad mood. So he sat down and he started to listen to his nervous system. And it was like the static on the radio when you're not in between stations. He said, when I was angry or upset, my nervous system was like static. And you can imagine how that would create that feeling. So then he tapped the tuning forks on his knees, and then he brought them to his ears, and he listened while the sounds of his nervous system changed immediately to match the sounds of the tuning forks.
Wow.
Wow is right. So then he thought, wow. And then he went to a factory and ordered all kinds of tuning forks, all kinds of spaces between the sounds, and started exploring with that. And so has developed all kinds of ways of using tuning forks to tune your nervous system to different effects. And there are some tuning forks. I have a bunch here, since it's such a fascinating topic. There's some with weights on them that you use directly on the body, so that the weights create a lower sound that helps transfer the vibration right to the body. And your body is a natural resonator for sound. Sound goes through you. So sound also changes the tone as you use sound on it. And then the ones he was playing with were these, which is so fascinating.
Now, those look like traditional tuning forks for those people on audio. Those look like traditional tuning forks to me.
Yes. Whereas the other ones have a different application. So if you'd like to try a couple of things, I have two intervals here, or spaces. One is a C and a G. The longer one here is a C, and the shorter one is a G. So that creates in the musical scale a perfect fifth. And the perfect fifth is a sound that is found to be really stimulating and really energizing in a way. And there's also some very interesting science that John Ballou did with a neuroscientist. They teamed up to find out if the sound of tuning forks would stimulate the nitric oxide cycle in the body. Now, the nitric oxide cycle is a natural cycle, and it's absolutely essential to our health. There are reams and reams and reams of research in the last 20 years or so that show how important it is. And there are many medications that help to stimulate nitric oxide. It's involved in almost every process in our body, that molecule. So it's really important. So what they found is whether they were pointing the sound to cells, live cells in a petri dish, or whether they had human subjects listening to the sound of this perfect fifth, these sounds that were two of the sounds they studied, stimulated the nitric oxide cycle in less than 30 seconds, completely naturally.
Wow, that sounds so much better. You said something about medications, but here you're just doing this with sound. Can we hear it over the podcast, do you think?
Well, yes. On the podcast, you'll hear it for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then it'll drop out. So what I'll do to give you, all the listeners, a better experience is I'll tap them and bring the sound of both tuning forks to my microphone here. And I'll do that 3 times, Sharon, just so it'll cut out, and then I'll tap them again and bring it back. Okay?
Perfect.
Okay, so here's the first one. Here they come. And I'll tap again. And then one more time.
That was interesting and pretty amazing. First, I could hear both sounds distinctly and separately, and pretty soon they became one sound, one tone, I guess it would be called. But I noticed when it blended, my breathing shifted much lower automatically. I wasn't even thinking about my breathing. In fact, I might have been holding my breath just a little bit, going, okay, what am I going to hear? What's going to happen? Maybe I was holding my breath just a little bit, but the minute the sounds blended, I felt my breathing just drop in a sort of a relaxation. Oh, that's so fascinating.
That is fascinating. Now, for an experiment here, I also have another tuning fork, which is an F. And this one is a little bit higher than the G, or a little bit lower than the G. So the C and the F create an interval called the perfect fourth. Now, the perfect fifth, which you just heard, is stimulating. And it also has been shown in the experiments to stimulate that nitric oxide cycle. So here's the sound of a perfect fourth. Let me play this 3 times at the mic so you get a sense of this different sound and how it may or may not shift your nervous system. So here we go. First one. Here it comes again. And one more time.
Now that's interesting. An unexpected thing happened. While it's not an uncomfortable sound, I have to say I like the perfect fifth better than the perfect fourth. Now, I don't know if that's common, uncommon, or unusual or not, but I do have a favorite.
That's good. Do you need to hear the perfect fifth again to bring your nervous system back to that sound?
Yes, that would be nice, because I did notice a shift, and that was part of it was slightly, not terrible, just slightly uncomfortable. Maybe uncomfortable is too strong a word, but I did notice a shift.
Okay, let me play the perfect fifth. I'll just bring them over here once.
Now, this is so fascinating to me. Is that common? How long was that? Maybe 2 seconds? I don't know. It was
About
very quick.
2 or 3 seconds. Usually it gets cut off very quickly by the software.
How fast that changed things, because now I'm back to where I was
Yeah.
before I heard the perfect fourth.
Yeah.
Wow. This is amazing how fast this response is. So tell us some more about these tuning forks and how people can work with them to create changes in our body that are for the better. I don't ever like the word healing or whatever. I just want to say optimize things that are going on in our body.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful way to put it, Sharon. Working with the sets of tuning forks takes a little training and understanding of the different sounds that you can create with them. The perfect fifth, though, because in the studies, they've been shown to create such a profound difference in the body. Working with the perfect fifth is so simple, and it's so supportive to your health and well-being because it stimulates that nitric oxide cycle. So one of the things I love sharing about is this perfect fifth. We do have them on our website because a lot of people, as I share about them, they want to explore. Once they feel the sound in their bodies, and if it feels supportive and that it's a tool that you can use. And if you keep them on the kitchen counter or the bathroom counter, it takes 30 seconds to use them. And usually what I do is I spend a minute and I'll tap them on, we have a piece of rubber, an activator you tap them on, and then listen until the sound stops. So you just place them by your ears. And then I like to switch hands and then tap them again and then listen. The interesting thing is that each ear hears from the other side of the brain, so that when you switch the sounds, then you're connecting the hemispheres of the brain in addition to stimulating the nitric oxide cycle. So that takes about a minute. As far as creating a complete change in your nervous system, that lasts pretty well all day. Some people find a couple of days.
I had to laugh, though, when you said in the bathroom. I thought, oh, right. So, honey, what are you doing in there? That's the first thought that I give. I think we'll do it somewhere else, like in the kitchen or living room.
Wherever.
Now, just a question. You're holding them up right by your ears, but let's say we do them here in the home, and would other people be affected standing in a different area or close by, even though they're not holding it up to their ears? Do they get the same response?
No, because they're very quiet. When you tap them, the sound, you can't hear the sound until the fork is about here.
Oh, okay. So you're holding it about 4 or 5 inches from your ears. So that's pretty close. Oh, this is fascinating. Okay. And let's talk a little bit, just really quickly, about this idea of intervals. If we do use tuning forks, and you said it could last for a day or two, is there like a way to not enough or overdose on it?
Good question, actually, because the nitric, and it's nitric, Sharon, it's a little different from the nitrous. And I'm not sure about the research on the perfect fifth. In the studies that I've read on how the perfect fifth stimulates that cycle, you don't really need very much. 1 minute is really all you need. If you are using the tuning fork on the body several times in one place, then so you tap the tuning fork, you place it on the body till the sound stops, then you tap again and place it on the body till the sound stops. And if you do that more than twice, what they've discovered in the research is that it will depress the nitric oxide cycle. So, and I didn't see anything in particular about the perfect fifth, but I did see in the research they did mention this. If you play, now you can place the fork on different points, so that for someone with arthritis, for example, these are wonderful on joints. I have arthritis in my fingers. Any problems with wrists, they can be really supportive to placing it on the wrists. Elbows, sometimes muscle tension. These forks you use on the body are my favorites for shoulder massage. Just a gentle shoulder massage, placing the fork in different areas where the muscles tend to be really tight.
But
So
it does sound like less is better.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. But I am amazed that shift that we heard from the perfect fit for me is still hanging in there. I could still feel a difference from how it was when I started the show. So obviously it has a fair amount of residual staying power. This is so cool. Let's talk some more then just about sound in general. I know that there's so much sound pollution out there now, things like that. What do you suggest for people's optimum when, let's say, we're in a home? How do we set our home up to be, I'll say, vibration healthy, sound healthy?
That's a really great question. One of the things that has been studied a great deal, especially in the European Union, is that traffic noise increases the stress in the body. So if you have a home that's near traffic, a very busy road, that can be quite a serious problem, actually. In the statistics that are coming out of the studies in the European Union, they're finding that there's increased illness, heart attacks, all of those illnesses that are created by increased stress response in the body and an ongoing stress response. So avoiding traffic noise is an important part of that. So apart from that, in the home, in your appliances, some of the things that create noise in the house are a noisy refrigerator fan, simple things like that. So it's helpful to have appliances that don't make quite as much noise when you're shopping for microwaves or refrigerators, all these other things. Listen to the sounds of the motors, because this is part of your sound environment. And sometimes it's helpful to have bubbling water. I have a water fountain in the living room upstairs, and I love listening, just sitting and working there and listening to the gentle bubbling water. The human body responds with relaxation around the sound of water generally. So if you have that sound of a fountain, there you can get many kinds of these little fountains in the retail stores. So, and that's another way that helps in the home. And some quiet places where you like to go. One of the things that is a challenge in our home here in Calgary, we're right beside a bus stop. And here too, the traffic noise can be a really serious problem. And when I'm sitting outside in the summer, the bus stops right beside our house. And when it takes off, it creates this rumble. And right on the other side of the bus stop, on the other side of the fence, I also have, at least in the summer, a little pond with a waterfall and a little fountain in the middle of the pond. So as I'm sitting out there, then I allow the sound of the bus to go through me. Remember, sound goes through you, because the sound of the bus is kind of a jarring sound as it goes through. And then I return my focus back to the water and the fountain, and then allow my whole body to go back into relaxation. So if you do have sounds around you that are disturbing, have several sounds around you also, or at least in that you have easy access to, even if it's recorded sound, that can return the body to a more relaxed state to minimize that stress response from the noise. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely, because one of that question came out of that one day a week, every morning, the homeowners association where I live has people that use those weed blowers, those gas engine weed blowers. And I have to tell you, I cannot pre-record any shows during that time. Mm-hmm. And just knowing that day is coming, my blood starts to boil a little bit. And when I hear the sound, I've been sort of preconditioned to have, I think, an exaggerated response to the sound, because I've had people staying here over the time off and on, and they'll all go, "Oh, those doggone blah, blah, blahs are back." And they'll go, what? And they have to, oh, I hear it finally. So that's where that was coming from. I like the idea of having the fountain that I can return to, that when I just hear that noise, or probably even a little bit beforehand, when I just know it's that day and they're going to show up, start focusing on other sounds. And, you shared with us how quickly that transition happens through the tuning fork experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't take much just to have water or pre-recorded sound that we love being available to us to use to bring us back to where we consider our center. This is so wonderful. Which brings me to a question. I shared with you an article that I read and wanted to know more about it, where I was reading an article about a study on Alzheimer's patients and the interesting fact that a lot of people with different types of dementia could remember sounds or songs, music from their childhood. And I was sharing with you that I wasn't so sure about my childhood, but definitely my teen years, I can remember the words to all those songs. And I've noticed that a lot of people tend to be their favorite songs, no matter how old they get, still seem to be those early songs they heard. I talk to people, my mother has her favorites, from her generation, shall I say, and I definitely have my favorites from my generation. But this is so fascinating to me, that why those sorts of sound memories would stay with someone who had impairment of the memory.
From what I've seen, that's such a fabulous topic, Sharon. I love this. In fact, a story I'd love to share too. Ed's dad had severe dementia, my father-in-law, and he spent almost every dinner over here for at least a year, almost 2 years, when he really was losing his memory even more. He had a type of dementia where he was losing his long-term memory and then his short-term memory. So he really had a hard time remembering the important parts of his life. And he would forget names of our kids or forget names of friends of the family. Yet, for when we were playing with the old songs that he remembered from way back in the 1920s, he was singing along and I would play with my guitar the chords to it, and we'd sing together. He had no problems with the words. And it's such a touching story, I guess, when we see this happen. The brain, when it works with music, it stores information from music in different places. So rhythm is stored in the cerebellum, or the cerebellum handles the times when we just can't stop tapping our foot because the beat of the music is just so active. That's the cerebellum working. When we're synchronizing to music, then that comes from the top of the brain, the cerebral cortex. Then the language center is in a completely different place. Now, when you combine rhythm with words, there's a fascinating thing. That's a whole other area of the brain too. And it's the combination, from what I've seen so far in the information, that the combination of rhythm and the words that keeps our memory keeps it in memory much longer. And in fact, when you think about before human beings could write, we carried our human history in ballads and songs because they were easier to remember.
So true. Wow, I hadn't thought of that. I'm curious, have you seen any research that if people stay, I'll say musical, I don't consider myself particularly musical, but I love to listen to music, stay keeping those active, that helps our memory? Or is there any research out there wondering if continuing to listen to music throughout our lives continues to keep our brain active?
I think in what I've seen, there's more evidence towards actually playing an instrument. because there's more of the brain is involved in actually playing than there is in listening, although you're activating most of the brain when you're listening. So I would expect there would be some positive response from that too. It seems though that when you're actually playing music, that there's a more enhanced, or it's not enhanced, but I'm not sure what the right words to that would be. More connection or longevity, I guess you could say, to how the brain is working, because you're working all of the brain. The more you work it, the more you create its or use its plasticity, I guess, is part of that too.
That reminds me of the study I read about dancing, that as seniors learn to dance. So if I can learn to play a musical instrument or learn to dance, because the study was pretty clear on that people who learn to dance, especially seniors who learned to dance or increase the dance moves that they were learning to do, increase the plasticity of their brain. So it sounds just like teaching myself new things, including learning to play a musical instrument.
Mm-hmm. Listening to music is more passive, so it's using less of the brain than actually doing things.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I have to take up an instrument. I played in my childhood, but haven't played since. So this will be interesting to do. Oh my gosh. And we've been talking about how sound creates energy and vibration and how that can change how we feel. And I like to use the word optimize when we use things such as sound or other, I'll call them alternatives, unique ways of healing and changing how we feel. And one of the things that I've experienced with Sharon are her amazing collection of bowls, singing bowls, as I like to call them. I don't know if that's the real word, but that's what I like to call them. And I have always been amazed at how quickly those two, similar to the tuning forks, transform how I am feeling. So tell us a little bit about the history of bowls and then what they can do for us.
That's a great question too, Sharon. I'll bring my old Tibetan bowl over here. This is one of the ones I use almost all the time. The set behind me is specially tuned for the chakras, and they're fabulous. It's fabulous to experience. But this one is kind of my all-purpose bowl. The Tibetan bowls have been around since probably 500 BC, so over 2,000 years. They've been found and used, and they're all-purpose kinds of tools. Many people who from Tibet who own these would say, I eat my rice out of my bowl. And if you take a look at the bottom of some of these old Tibetan bowls, you can see black marks on the bottom of the bowl where it actually has been over the fire. So all-purpose tools. The old bowls are made from about 7 different metals, and they resonated a lot of different sounds at once. There's low frequencies, mid frequencies, and really high frequencies. And they're all kind of have an effect of wavering, like or where the sound, it wobbles. So I'd like to play this one, and hopefully you'll get a sense of some of the different waverings in this one. And those waverings are actually brainwave entrainment frequencies that calm the mind or focus the mind, depending on the frequencies. So here's the sound of this old bowl. And I'm not sure how long it lasts on this. That was okay, Sharon?
Yeah, it was still going. It lasted a long time. And for those on audio, I want to explain, how far around is that? Maybe 18 inches or so? That's a pretty big bowl.
Yeah, it about 18 inches. This is it right by my ear. So
yeah.
it's...
For those on audio, I'm trying to explain that it looks like it's a beautiful metal bowl. Obviously, you said 7 metals, and I can see what I would call like hand pounding marks or something, sort of hand type of shaping marks into it. It's amazing. Can we hear it one more time? Because that is just a beautiful sound, and you're actually I'm going to use the word gonging it. I don't know if that's the right word, with a
Absolutely.
beautiful stick that has a felt-like cover on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, for those on audio, here we go. Wow, that is just a beautiful sound.
That one had a really good wavering to it. The Tibetan bowls are fascinating tools because remembering that sound goes through you, especially when you're holding and playing one of these old bowls, you're getting wave after wave after wave after wave of sound going through you. And I like to call these Tibetan bowls, they're like the restart button on your computer. What do you do when your computer is acting up, when it's not behaving, when things aren't working? You turn the darn thing off and then you restart it. And because the Tibetan bowl creates wave after wave after wave after wave of frequencies through your body, it shakes everything up. And when the sound stops, then it allows your entire being to reset. It's like the restart button on the computer. It resets to its own natural sounds and harmonies and patterns.
Oh, that's so fascinating. Now, you were holding it in one of your hands as you, my word, gonged it with the other hand. Obviously,
Yes.
you're not only hearing the sound, but you're feeling the vibration through your hand down into your arm and throughout your body. So,
Yes.
okay, that was what I was curious about. Now, that has a beautiful, luscious sound. Does everybody choose a different sound? I mean, like maybe some people might go, well, Sharon, that was pretty low, or something else. Does everybody have a vibration or a sound that they prefer?
That's a really good question. If you're in the market, if you're looking for a Tibetan bowl for yourself, then what to look for, play a lot of bowls, and whenever you get one that feels, that's the one to buy, no matter what it costs. Sometimes people will buy one that looks pretty and that sounds okay, but the bowl that will really serve you is the one that goes,
Oh, great. I love that. Great response on how you do that. That's awesome. Now, I've also seen where that was sort of a gong-like thing. What's the difference when I see someone play the top of a bowl, or, which makes a different sound? Do you know the type of thing I'm talking about, where I've seen people sort of rub the top of a bowl?
I have a stick that plays. Actually, I'll play. I prefer the gong mallet because the mallet gives more frequencies from the bowl and creates a better restart for me. When you're using the stick to play the bowl, then you do take it along the rim. This one is a large bowl, so there we go. And you get fewer sounds. This one is really low. I'm not sure it's coming through the microphone. It's more of a rumble.
Yeah, it's an interesting intermittent rumble. Interesting.
And here's another sound starting to merge.
Fascinating. That's a completely different sound, and everyone, that was the exact same bowl.
Yes.
She was using a different wand or mallet, whatever we want to call it, to create the sounds, but that was the exact same bowl. Fascinating. Now, that one is an ancient Tibetan 7 metals bowl. When I know you're an expert on this, I've seen some that are, I don't know the right word, they look like they're out of crystal. Whether they are or not, I'm not clear. But what's the difference between these bowls that are out of different materials, like the 7 metals, versus these bowls that look like they're made from crystal?
I have one of those here too, Sharon. This one here is a singing crystal bowl. This one actually is what's called an alchemical bowl. They were named alchemical by the creators of this style of bowl at Crystal Tones. And this one is a little blue in color, and it's coated in diamond. But to make the bowls, what they do is they take pure quartz, 99.9% quartz, and grind it into a powder. And then they heat it at very high temperatures around a mold, so it creates a bowl shape. And this one this one is more of a clear quartz. It's heated at higher temperatures than some of the other bowls that are more of a milky, opaque quality. And the bowls usually only resonate at 1 or 2 frequencies. The clear quartz bowls will usually resonate at 2 frequencies, the other bowls at 1. Now, the interesting thing about what's so cool about working with quartz is that quartz is an amplifier. Dr. Marcel Vogel was IBM's most prolific researcher in the early days of computers. He researched luminescence. He was a global expert on luminescence. So every time you look at your alarm clock or your stove with the clock, that is due to Marcel Vogel's work. He also researched the properties of quartz in holding memory for computers. And what he discovered after he left IBM and retired, he continued to work with quartz. And he discovered that quartz is an actual amplifier. It amplifies human thought in powerful ways. So whatever you're holding as a focused thought, it's like turning up the volume on that whenever you're holding that thought and working with quartz. It's totally different from working with the Tibetan bowls. Actually, another part of his research with quartz was he discovered that the sound of a singing bowl or even a quartz crystal that's been energized with very specific human thought will actually change the physical properties of water. And he measured this in the hydrogen bonding, in the surface temperature, and in a couple of other ways as he was studying the power of quartz and water. And remember, the human body is 70 to 90% water, depending on whether you're a young child, which is higher water. As you age, then the water content goes down a bit, but we're 70% water. So the sound of the quartz, along with human thought, is shifting the water inside of you. Another wonderful, wonderful way that I found crystal bowls really helpful with is in working with pain and helping to manage pain. It has a kind of sound that really can help lower pain levels. The Tibetan bowls are also really, really great, especially when they're used on the body at managing pain. And the crystal bowls also are wonderful at lowering pain levels. So shall I play this one?
Yes, I'm excited to hear it.
I'm going to tap it first now this one is a suede stick with a little bit of rubber inside. Because quartz is mostly glass, so it can break if it's tapped with wood or anything like that. So here is the bowl tapped, and you'll be able to hear the 2 different frequencies in this one.
Oh, that's a nice sound. That's a lovely sound. Not as long lasting as the others, as the metal bowl, but that was a lovely sound.
Shall I play it going around the rim?
Yes, let's hear it going around the rim. Wow. Now, I want to just clarify that some of that, there was a slight distortion in going around the rim, but that's because we're going around the rim, so we're closer to the mic and further from the mic as we go. That's probably why we heard that slight change in volume. What to me was that as I watched, I could watching it on the video, you can see that she's further away from the mic than she is. But that was an interesting difference. The difference between the metal and the crystal is pretty intense.
It's very intense. That's a wonderful way to describe it. But also, the intensity can be amplified with human thought and whatever you're thinking or intending to do with the sound.
Oh my goodness. Now, we're just down to the last 5 minutes. Whenever Sharon and I get together, I just have so many questions, but I want to have time for any final thoughts on what we've covered today that I haven't asked you yet, Sharon. And then please share all about sound wellness with us.
I think I would like to share how powerfully sound goes through you. Remember, it moves atoms as it goes through you. So I like to encourage people to really become aware of the sounds around you and how they may be affecting your nervous system. Remember, sound is food for your nervous system.
Ooh, I love that. Sound is food for your nervous system. Everyone, that's a tweetable there. We're going to have to make sure we talk about that. Just one more second about food for the nervous system, and then jump into how we learn all about you and more about sound wellness.
Well, we know in regular food, there's junk food. So there's also junk sound, which would be things like traffic noise. Those leaf blowers in your neighborhood, that one day a week, is junk sound.
Absolutely.
So that's the kind of sound that increases stress in the nervous system. So not the kind of thing you want to have around you on an ongoing basis. We're all exposed to junk sound as we go about our days. And then if you are, then it helps to come back to more of a good sound to return your nervous system to its normal level of functioning. Now, good sound is actually, yes, good sound, especially healthy sound, are wind, water, and birdsong. These things are 3 types of sounds we evolved with. We evolved with the wind telling us the weather's changing. We evolved with birdsong in the forest that told us there's danger nearby if all of a sudden all the birds stop singing. Also, the high sounds of the birds help to keep the brain focused. And then when you're near water, essential for survival, our whole nervous system relaxes because we know we have essential for survival. That's in our DNA. And also those lower sounds of waves and bubbling water and a lovely stream or a fountain helps to relax the nervous system and allow us to return to more normal functioning so that we have that, I guess, a more delicate or more, I'm going to use the word normal, but I think a more of a balance in between the parts of our nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system gives us the stress response, which keeps us safe. And then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to relax when we're safe. So those things are always in a dance. And those healthy sounds help to bring the dance back to a normal level rather than something like that, which is not healthy. So we want to keep them dancing this way.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to have dancing sounds. And tell us about sound wellness, Sharon.
Sound wellness is all about supporting people in using sound to support your well-being and your health. And I'm so passionate about sharing simple ways that sound can really help you. We already use it when we listen to our favorite music. There are so many other ways that you can bring simple sounds into your day to help you get through your day with more ease.
That's you can find more about Sharon at soundwellness.com, as well as she trains practitioners. So if you're interested in learning more about becoming a practitioner of sound, and I'm not sure the right word for it, Sharon, so you share with us about how you train practitioners. What word do you call that?
Well, we actually created our own modality, Sharon, because sound training and using sound is all over the map and there haven't really been too many standards created yet. So what we did when we developed our standards for training practitioners in using sound, we also created sound wellness as a modality. And as a modality, there's sound healing, sound therapy, and the use of music, specially designed music that has specific effect. So our practitioners are trained and tested in this. As we created the training, we also created a competency certification. It's the first of its kind in Canada. Most of the time when you attend a training, you get a certificate of attendance or a certificate of completion. You don't necessarily have to take some tests or be shown or be tested and observed while you're using the tools that you're competent. So we decided to raise the bar on the training and have created the testing for practitioners in using sound wellness as a modality.
Fantastic. And I love that concept, and definitely trained for competence. I love that. And that's over at soundwellness.com. We're out of time, but I want everyone to be able to jump over to understandingautoimmune.com, sign up for Transcribe Tribe to get the Sharon's transcript as well as almost all of the other transcripts as well. I enjoy that because you can print it out and find little places where you maybe want to show someone else or what have you. I enjoy having the transcript as well. So you can get that over at understandingautoimmune.com. And join me next Friday night for another brand new episode. You can also find these episodes up on YouTube, and we've got little mini videos on Instagram as well as Facebook. And we're on Twitter as well under Understanding Autoimmune and or Autoimmune Hour. So everyone join us next week. As I said, have a great week. Whatever your adventures, enjoy.
The information provided on lifeinterruptedradio.com is for educational purposes only. What you hear, read, and see on Life Interrupted Radio is based on experience only. The information presented here should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on Life Interrupted Radio.